Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, I was just making sure.
Okay, perfect. All right, according to my watch, it is 8:30, and so we'll go ahead and get started for the purposes of time. Hopefully everyone received the agenda yesterday, and we're really glad that you could join us live. This makes it a lot easier for us to be able to meet very quickly and get some information out there to a large group. I wanted to just briefly review how large we actually are. We have 4 schools in Carter County, 4 in Floyd, 4 in Harlan, 1 in Jenkins, 5 in Johnson, 3 in Laurel, 4 in Leslie, 1 in Letcher, 5 in Lincoln. Did I already say Lincoln? No, I didn't. 1 in Owsley, 10 in Pike, 3 in Pulaski, 2 in Rockcastle, 3 in Wolf, 1 in Harlan, and 1 in McGoffin. So if we all had to travel to have these meetings, it would take quite a traveling distance for most of us. We would probably spend more time in the vehicle than we would actually at our meeting. So monthly, as required by our federal funding for Operation Unite Service Corps, we have these meetings, we record them, and if it is that you can't attend, like some districts are on fall break this week, so it's difficult for them to attend. So we try to record it and send it out. But the reason we like for you to join live is sometimes there's questions that you may have, and it's always better if you can ask those questions while we're on. You can type over in the chat box if you have a question, or at the end, we always try to allow enough time for questions and answers. So I'm Kelly Thompson, and I'm a co-director for the AmeriCorps service members with Operation Unite. And then we have Melinda Kinzer, who is the director. She's on and will be speaking to you in just a moment. And then we have Marionette Little as a co-director as well. So we're glad that those of you that could join us are on, and we'll jump right into what we want to talk about. I'm going to jump around on the agenda a little bit because there are a couple things I want to mention to you, and then there are some things that Melinda wants to speak to you about as well. Because this is federal funding, there are quite a few requirements that we have with paperwork, and you're probably at this point thinking, oh my goodness, we've gotten so many things that we've had to turn in. But they do desktop audits with us as well as come to visit to make sure that we have, background checks for you as the site supervisor, background checks, and a plethora of other things for the members. So I'm going to just talk to you just to remind you about the site service agreement, and that's a document that we emailed to you as the site supervisor or principal. The grant calls the principal the site supervisor. And so you're to confirm that your person is who they say they are. You sign the document, your member signs the document, and then you email it back to us. And not that I'm trying to call names or pull anybody out, but I know how it is. Sometimes you get so much in your inbox that it's easy to overlook. So I just wanted to make sure that I mention that there are several schools that have not turned those into me. And if we get a desktop audit, the way our consequences are they take funding and we have to give money back. And so we don't want to give any money back to them. We want to give it all to you and your schools. So if you have not sent your site service agreement in, double check just to make sure you have. I've got a spreadsheet. And as they come in, I put them in that spreadsheet, but that's not to say that I haven't maybe overlooked it somehow. So if you'll double check and I can double check, hopefully we'll have all those site service agreements in. In addition to that, there's a site supervisor background check. That means that I sent a document to the central office, to your central office individually, and I put the specific names of the principals. So, for example, in Pike County, we have 10 principals. I put all the principals for Pike County on that document and sent it to the personnel department, and they have to check to make sure that, and you all have had your background checks or you wouldn't be in the positions you're in. We just have to have it documented on letterhead from your district and sent back to us. And I do have, those would be well, I don't have as many of those as I would really like to have back at this point. And I know with the beginning of school, there were a lot of other demands on your time, but if you could check with the personnel department at your central office, but those were sent to every school district, and they were supposed to be printed on letterheads, signed by someone at the central office, and then sent back, because that's certainly something that they're going to check for from us. We want to make sure that we have that. Does anybody have any questions about site supervisor forms and background check forms? Okay, all right, so I'm going to turn this over to Melinda and let her speak to you for just a moment.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the timesheets. Our time sheet keeping program, it actually does three things. It does the application for the members, and then also does the timesheets, and then it also does something that we call logs. And that is where the members are going to record what students they work with on a daily basis and what they do with them. It's also where they're going to be more descriptive with their timesheets. Those of you that were with us last year, that was on the previous year's timesheets that they could write in right there on their timesheets. We've had to switch that to the logs because of some of the wording we used was just not exactly in line with our performance measures for our grant. So we transferred that where it would be kind of an internal thing instead of if we get audited and they look at those timesheets, which they do. You know, we wouldn't have any red flags that we would have to give further documentation and more things to substantiate what we do in the classroom. So with that being said, a big concern that we always have at the end of the year is members getting their time in. And it's one of those things, it's we really need to be concerned about it this time of year. And I did just a real quick calculation, and for the month of October, members could get 184 hours in just for the month of October if they do a minimum of 40, like 42 hours a week. So kind of help your members question them if, if they're not getting 40 hours in. Say, what can we do? Are you coming in early enough? Do we need to do something differently? Do we need to do something in the afternoons that we can get you involved with? Because we do not want people to have to, at the end of the year, being scrapping and trying to look for something to do. We want them to benefit your school year. And, the best time to do that, of course, is from now until May. And, to get your money's worth. Also, another thing, we do want the members to have a few breaks here and now, but you can look at any day as a service day. They really don't get sick days if they are sick and they're not there or for whatever reason. That's just hours they have to make up. So if they are sick, that be mindful. That's 8 hours we're going to have to pick up somewhere else. And we really need your help with that to kind of pound that in because this program's really different. People, well, how many sick days do we get? Or, and it's just not like that because it's not tied to a wage. Another thing is on their timesheet, if they serve like 8 hours, we really need to reflect that we have given them a 30-minute duty-free lunch. So that's another thing that you all can kind of help us keep an eye on. I know in schools, a lot of times, I don't think we had duty-free lunch, but we were always planning or, in some kind of mode where we were going to do something for the school. But we still have to document that has been provided, a 30-minute free lunch. So work that out with your member, ask them, and just have them check and see, are you taking lunch? Are you, what's that look like? We need to record this. We really don't want any red flags to go up. The federal government has really, I don't know, I think they got a grant and they have more auditors is what I personally think. Because I have been, it seems like, under an audit since I started this job. It's just kind of the nature of these grants, I guess. But that's basically all that I have to say. members can help. I know you all probably have fall festivals and probably getting ready to have parent-teacher conferences. You know, they can help meet and greet people at the door and work those hours. That would be school-wide service, and I'm sure many of you could have, you know, extra hands on deck. And if you have any questions, just reach out, let us know, and we can, you know, determine together what would be appropriate and what isn't appropriate. But I think things are going. I'm sorry, Kelly.
Can I interject this just a minute?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On the agenda that we sent, if you notice underneath timesheets, we put principal only. In the past, some of you that have been on with us before, principals and assistant principals were designated to approve those timesheets. And Melinda, do you want to speak a little bit to that about why it's just principals this year, or you know how?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. For every, you know, we have to pay for each account for America Learns, so that's another account, another expense. Also, that's that much more paperwork we have to have on that person. So just to make it a little bit more streamlined and more in, you know, in line with our grant, the site supervisor, you know, is the principal. And so with that being said, you know, you have your login, you know, that's your domain, and you're the person over that. So, you know, handle that as you will. But that's the reason we had to trim down and get one. You know, some schools had 2 or 3 people that could sign off, and we just can't do that. That just wasn't being responsible with our grant. It just got so messy as you know, filtered down. You know, was this the site supervisor? Is it the principal? Well, yes, and also. So do you have the documentation on these other people too? So in order just to be, you know, have clarity on our grant and to just make it a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable, it was suggested that we just keep the one person per school. And then also there was something else, Kelly, that
can I say this along those lines? You know, if the principal in the class, or if the teacher in the classroom with that member is the one that's really monitoring, then, you know, maybe you as the principal or the site supervisor can just collaborate with that teacher in order for you to approve those timesheets. But in addition to that, there's a sign-in, sign-out that I sent during the last meeting that we just need once a month, just that they sign in and sign out. We have to, you know, make sure that they're showing up and that they are there to perform the duties that they need to be performing. So if you weren't on with us then, or you haven't received that sign-in, sign-out sheet, it was just something that, you know, a document that we made. It's not that you have to have it on that particular form, but that just kind of helps you to keep up with it a little better. So if you need that, let me know and I'll send it, or I may just send it out again to everyone, just a duplicate. If you already have it, just ignore it, and if you don't have it, then we'll ensure that you do.
Thank you, Kelly. That's what I was going to bring up. I've also added a place for the member when they get finished with a month's worth of sign-in sheets, that they can upload that into America Learns. I have one for each month, so that'll be easier for us to keep track of. And when they ask for that, we'll have that and have that readily available, because that is on the list when they do their visits. Also, all people that have been in service for at least 2 weeks should have all of their students in America Learns. We have a certain time limit that we have to record data, and so the quicker they get those in, the better. So if you all haven't decided on who they're going to be targeting, please kind of get that expedited so they can get their members in, because with the logs, they have to record information on the members, and so that's where we're headed with that. When they have to fix a list of students, and like, we don't use any personal information. I guess if you really wanted to figure out who it was, you could, but we don't use the student's full name. We just try to protect their identity as much as possible, trying to be in compliance with that. And Also, we have to approve the names. So once they put them in, there's a process that we have to go through and make sure that they have protected the students' names. And that's all I have on the America Learns with their timesheets.
All right, so in addition to timesheets, it's time for the member to put student names in. So we want to make sure that the members have put the students' names in that they're going to be working with, and there's a pre-test that's given before the actual intervention begins. And all this is research-based, and our research team is from the University of Kentucky, looking to ensure that what those members are doing in the classroom are really making gains in math for you, as well as our drug prevention curriculum. Melinda, do you want to add anything about adding student names in?
Well, that's just, as soon as you all can get those, decided that they need to be in, so we can, move on with our kind of mid-year check and make sure everybody's on the right path. But I think most of the members are doing really well. Some of them that have just gotten on, of course, they're, it's kind of like deer in the headlights, but that's okay. We can help them.
Okay. It says, I have a question. Is there a specific assessment for kids to take, or do we use our MAC data? Melinda, do you want to speak to that?
Years ago, we used just different assessments, but with our grant, if you use a universal screener, it makes your grant stronger. So we do provide the assessment piece, and it's research-based and all of that good stuff. And your member will have access to that on their America Learns account. And if you have any form of those quick graders, it's a multiple choice test, that will probably help your member out. I suggest they make one classroom copy of the test, and that way, it saves on paper, and they can just, reuse that, and then, of course, have answer sheets for everyone.
So if you have like a Scantron or something
Yes.
that they could use, that would work. Okay, so I think we're to the last thing on our agenda, which is Red Ribbon Week. And being that we are drug prevention curriculum, and that is our main goal and focus, we want to remind you that our AmeriCorps members will be heavily involved in Red Ribbon Week, and we hope that all of your schools will participate, and our Unite clubs that have been formed in your school should have an active hand in any activities that would be taking place in your Red Ribbon Week. So again, in addition to math intervention, drug prevention is also, and I always say this, and not to belabor the point, but anything that isn't assessed, sometimes we don't have a lot of time for it in schools, but we can all agree that the drug epidemic and issue in some form or fashion has affected all of us in our school settings. So we hope that we can focus on it all year long, but especially during Red Ribbon Week here in October. If you have any questions, and most of the time this is why we like to have these principal meetings and activities, and then we have our members together also, so we can learn from each other. What are you doing at your school for Red Ribbon Week? What are you doing in your school for math intervention? So we can share ideas and collaborate and learn and grow from each other. Any questions? Okay, Melinda, do you have anything to add?
No, Kelly, I don't. We're here by email, phone call, text, whatever. If anything comes up, please just let us know.
All right. We have stayed right with our 20 to 25 minutes. I think we've been on 20 minutes now. If anyone has any questions, as she said, you're welcome to email or call. I will record these meetings each month, and we had thought about possibly moving it back to closer to lunch to see if more folks could participate at that time. So I don't know, it's just hard to meet everybody's schedule when you have 54 schools that are participating, but we will record them each month and then send them out. So if you aren't able to attend one month, you can watch through the link that we send to you. So if there are no further questions, we've certainly enjoyed you being on, and we appreciate you being on here with us. All right, have a great rest of the day.